Hey, we're gonna launch into a series to build up towards Easter. We're gonna start talking about the amazing things that happened at the cross, and I'd encourage you even to go back to our YouTube channels, and you can watch last year at some point. We actually talked about what happened at the cross and the power at the cross. So I just encourage you to do that. But we're gonna jump into a couple of things that we want to really focus on in the promises of God, and I'm excited to start us off today. But before we get into that, I just want to tell you a little story about whenever I was a kid. I was about 7, 8 years old, and I can't remember where I was, but I saw these really cool Nike shoes. Now, I said Nike shoes, not Nike shoes. They were the Nike space E shoes, not the real Nike shoes. And as a 7, 8-year-old boy, so this was like, usually I got shoes like one time a year or something. So this was like the moment, you're like, oh man, I'm going to get some new shoes. This is going to be amazing. And I saw these Nike E shoes, and they were really cheap. So I could get these, and maybe my parents will get me something else because, so I'm like negotiating in my little head what's going to happen. And I'm like so excited about my Nike E shoes that I bought them, or I didn't buy them, I'm 7, right? So my parents bought them for me. And so then week 1 goes by, and it's awesome. Like my friends think they're cool. Everyone as a 7-year-old boy, this is like the moment to have awesome shoes, and you run a little faster, in these shoes. You feel a little bit stronger in these shoes. You can jump a little higher. This is how I'm feeling, right? Week 2 goes by, I'm still fast. I'm still stronger, all of these things. Week 3, something begins to happen. Because you see, I'm so fast, so strong, that these shoes begin to have momentary breakdowns. And they begin to come apart. So now I'm in the desperation mode, because I get shoes like one time a year, right? And so I was like, what am I going to do for the rest of these other 49 weeks in this year? And so, you get the I'm 7, so I'm like getting the glue, trying to glue them back together and all of the things. So by the end of week 4, 1 month into these Nike shoes, so there reached a point where there was a great opposition, great conflict for these shoes because I was running so fast that the whole front part becomes unglued, and it's like I'm running, it's like a little duck, like walking around, it's just flapping everywhere. And so at that point, I realized that I'm going to have to go talk to my parents. We're going to have new negotiations because these shoes are not going to work. My Nike shoes had to go to the grave. I needed new shoes, and it was really disappointing. But that's how a lot of us, the truth is, for many of us, we value things that we can trust. Whether that's our shoes, I learned very quickly it's more important to buy Nike shoes and not Nike shoes because I couldn't trust them after so much time. But we value things that we can trust, and that's actually, we put priority on those, whether that's our shoes or something else, and we'll take time and we'll take moments and we'll even invest in something so that whenever we believe that it's going to work and that we can trust that it's going to actually hold up because I'm running so fast. So later on, I did get better shoes. They could hold up to my amazing speed, and everything was okay. But the truth is, for many of us, we actually are in the same situation. Because there's questions that we oftentimes have to ask whenever we're looking to, this is something I learned at 7 when we're looking to buy something. Who made them? What are they made of? And nowadays, it's also very important to know, where did it come from? These are things that are very important whenever we're making a decision in our everyday life. My wife she's a very healthy person, so these questions are often asked whenever we buy basic food. Who made them? Where did it come from? What, all of these different, what is it actually made of? And I'm really depressed whenever I find out what it's actually made of, and we have to buy something different. So these are questions that we have every day. But the truth is, for us, we're in the same situation. How many of you have heard of the idea of we need to make something of ourselves? You need to go make something of yourself. You need to pull yourself up and do something incredible with your life. You need to go and make something that's going to be far better than what was before. We love these stories. We love these different stories of people that come from nothing and they make something of themselves. So it seems like all throughout our lives, we come back to this question: who or what is making it, or who or what is making us? And the amazing thing, as followers of Jesus, there are promises, and we're going to look at these promises today, that he is actually a part of this process. So I want you to turn in your Bibles to Matthew 4:19. You're excited about the Bible? We're going to turn to the Bible in two different places today. Thank you, Anya, for being excited. So Matthew 4:19, so this is Jesus. He has made some decisions on who his disciples are going to be, and he extends this invitation to some of them. And it's this really interesting passage, and we're just going to read the first part of it. And he says, "Come," this is Jesus, "come, follow me, and I will make you." Here's the promise. Come, follow me, and I will make you. I want you to turn to someone and say, "I am," and turn to the other person that you didn't just turn to. "In the making." I am in the making. My birthday was February 24th. And what I have discovered is that I have no idea what year 34, what I am doing with my life. I have no idea what's going on. I was talking to someone. This has been a very long week since February 24th, and I think for many of us, we've had a very long week. And so for me to think that I can make something of myself, that's not a good idea, because I've never been here before. I've never been in this situation before. And if you've ever done something for the first time, who was extremely successful the first time they've ever done anything? There's always that one, And whatever he did, it probably wasn't that interesting. So if you're great at something the first time you do it, then probably it's not worth doing it. Isn't that right? If you're great at something the first time you do it, then probably there's something more that you can challenge yourself with. So if I'm walking through year 34 of my life, trying to make something of myself, there is no way I can do it, because it's the first time I've been in this situation. But Jesus says that if you follow me, he will make you. This is the promise. He will make you. It's like, make me into what, Josiah? It's a good question. I'm glad you asked. So we know that if we're followers of Jesus, we know who is making us. It's no longer just us trying to figure out life on our own. It's no longer us navigating the decisions. It's no longer us trying to figure out, is Nike a good decision or not? But the truth is that he will make us back to the original design. The issue with my shoes, my Nike shoes, was not that the design was bad. It's that they didn't follow the right design to make a shoe. And that's what made it into a disaster. But if we go back to the original design, what were we created for? Genesis 1. First time humankind is talked about. God says, let us make man in our image. What was the original design? For all of us to reflect the image of God on earth. That's the original design for each and every one of us. So if Jesus is saying, come, follow me, and I will make you, what's he going to make you into? A picture of him. And not just on the outside, but on the inside. That means our thoughts, our actions, our responses, all the promises, everything we know about who God is, we can actually experience in this life. Why? Because the original design for each and every one of us was to reflect him, to look like him. Come, follow me. And the promise is, I will make you. Turn to someone and say, I am in the making. You know, there's a lot of different things we can look at. There's a lot of different promises we're going to look at about what Jesus did on the cross. But the thing I want to focus on today is this one picture. And it's something we've been talking about a number of times over the past couple of weeks. But this one picture, it's the picture of strength. Now turn to Habakkuk 3. Oh, yeah, we're going into some intense Bible drills. So I told you that now so I can keep talking because it may take you a moment to find Habakkuk because it's a small place. So turn to Habakkuk 3. Because what's the amazing thing is that if he is making us to look like him, then all the promises we have access to. And one of them is strength. Now here's this picture, here's this story of what was going on in Habakkuk 3. Actually, I'm going to go to a different spot. I'm still giving you time to go to Habakkuk 3. But one thing I find with the promises of God is that we oftentimes want to use God's promises as an escape button. Anyone else? It's like, I know the plans that you have for me, so I don't like what's going on. Escape. You know, I just want like that escape button. Does anyone else feel like, I wish God's promises, you know, he's going to prosper me. He's going to have a good, comfortable life. Escape button. This relationship's difficult. Escape button. You know, does anyone else want, I read something, sounds good. My situation is awful. Escape button. I wish this is how it worked. I would love a good escape button. It's like, you know, the pilots, you know, they have, whenever things are going bad, they're like, whoosh, choo. You know. You know, that's how I wish it worked. But luckily, I'm not the one that's making us. God is the one that's making us, which now brings us to Habakkuk 3. Because you see over and over in Scripture, you see that so many times what God does, he doesn't let us hit an escape button, but he makes us overcome the situation. So he doesn't have to bail us out of a situation. But actually he says, you know what? You're going to have victory in this situation. So you can just read it. A couple of weeks ago was the Jewish holiday of Purim, which is the celebration of what happened in the book of Esther. And if you read the story of Esther, you can see there was a planned genocide against Israel and the people of God. And miraculously, Esther was able to save her entire nation. But if you look at the promise, the blessing that was given to the people of Israel in that moment, it was not, hey, everything's going to be okay now. The promise and the decree from the king, this is what it said. You have the right to fight for yourself. You have the right to defend yourself. And so the decree was not, oh, you're going to escape, but it's no, you have the ability to fight and to have victory. And that's exactly what happened, and that was what just was celebrated. You can read this over and over and over. A couple of weeks ago, Pastor Zibby preached on Acts 27, and whenever Paul was in a boat, and he says, hey guys, don't worry, it's a massive storm. Everyone's going to be okay. But first, you're going to crash. So there was we want the escape button. Whenever I hear everything's going to be okay, that means storm's gone. We're going to have a nice cruise the rest of the way. The buffet's going to be full. You know, that's my version of everything's okay. But what did God say? No. No escape button. You're going to have the ability to overcome the situation. Over and over and over again. The promise of God is not for us to run out of a situation, but it's for us to be victorious in every situation. And that changes how I approach my life. And that brings us to Habakkuk 3, finally. Someone's really excited about finally getting to Habakkuk 3. I don't know who that was. So Habakkuk 3, I'm going to start in verse 17. And it goes bad at first. I'm just going to let you know that. Though the trees will not blossom, and there's no fruit on the vines, the produce of the olive fail, and the fields bring no food. The flocks are cut off from the fold, and there will be no herd in the stalls. So let me just summarize what I just said, because it's nice, beautiful poetry. Life is going really bad. Like, there's bad, then there's this situation. Then it's not going well. There's no food, there's no nothing. The most impossible situation Habakkuk is trying to describe. And then he comes to verse 18. Yet I will rejoice in the Lord, and I will take joy in the God of my salvation. For God the Lord is my strength, and he makes my feet like a deer's feet. He makes me walk on high places. God the Lord is my strength. Why? Why? Follow me, and I will make you. So let me go back to my Nike shoes. I cannot trust the company Nike because I don't know the maker. And after my experience with those shoes, I know I can't trust that maker. But if we know our maker, we can trust that what he's building in us is something that can stand. That's something that we can trust, that we have the power and the ability to overcome each and every situation we are walking in. It's a promise. Now, there's nice, beautiful poetry in these last verses, but what did they mean? He makes my feet like a deer's feet so I can walk on high places. That's beautiful, right? Except I have no idea what that means. I mean, this deer's feet. You see, in Israel, the deer, they would be walking through the mountains. And I've been to Israel. A lot of times, Israel mountains are more like just cliffs, just coming up and down. And it's impossible almost to even walk up the mountain or to even see the path. But the deer that live in these areas, they've made their homes in these areas. They can see the paths, and they can actually walk up and down these cliffs with no issue. They're comfortable. This is their home. This is their environment. So what is Habakkuk saying? He's giving us a picture that our Maker will make our feet like deers. Our Maker will have the ability to walk through impossible situations, so much so that we're comfortable just like it's at home. So what he is saying, and the promise I want us to take hold of today, is that he is making us a people that can walk through the impossible. You know, for me, I've read this chapter every single week this week. Every single week, every single day. I don't even know what it's. I've read it every single day this week because it's been a long week. The time change, it's messed with me. Habakkuk 3. Rejoice in the Lord, for our Maker is our strength. And we can trust what he is making in us because we trust him. And we don't have to run to God, to the Bible, to try to find an eject button out of our situations. Because he is making us strong enough to walk through each and every situation. For some of us, those situations are very obvious. For others, we're still walking through situations that we don't even share with people. But whenever we listen to the words of Jesus, and he says, come, follow me, and I will make you. When we trust in this promise that he will make us, when we trust in this promise that what he is doing is producing something where we can walk through any situation in life. You see, as people that follow Jesus, we're not called to run from difficult problems. We're not called to run and escape from situations, but actually we're called to stand and be the people that everyone can look at and look to and ask, what is it about them where they can walk in an impossible situation and still have joy, still have strength, and overcome? What is it about them? I need to know their maker. So here's my question for you. Do we trust God like that? You know, what I find is when I bought my Nike shoes, I moved them around, I stretched them out. I did everything I could to convince myself that it was going to be okay. But even in my 7-year-old brain, I knew that probably this was not going to end well because I didn't know the maker. But when there was not much stress on those shoes, they were fine. But as soon as the conflict came with the ground and me trying to run or whatever was happening, when the stress happened, that's when I discovered what those shoes were really made of. So sometimes in our life, we can say things, but it's in the moment of the situation that we really discover our maker. And we really discover what he's made of us. So I just want to encourage each and every one of us today. Do you know your maker? Do you trust him? And are you letting him make something in you that can handle each and every situation? It's like, but what about this situation, Josiah? Or what about this? Here's my answer. I don't know. Because year 34 is not gone as I planned. But my maker, I can trust that he's making me to someone that can handle year 34 and 35 and 36. So my trust is in him and not in me. And it changes everything. And it's a promise that we have, that each and every one of us has.